to do with the remaining schedule as well. Now, not sure if you guys saw this or not. Ohio State AD Gene Smith saying today that the working arrangement between the Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12, the so-called alliance, may not necessarily lead to scheduling agreements between the conferences when it comes to future football games.
Yeah, it was a political lobby to begin with. That's all it was. And then they said, yeah, sure, USC and Clemson can play. Why not? Yeah, let's do that. That'll happen 15 years from now.
Why did they make the alliance?
Because they wanted to lobby against essentially the SEC.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and how the expansion was happening so quickly, kind of at nuke level with the college football playoff.
Yeah, that was all SEC based. You know, we were on our way to, you know, for all the, how many months now are we dragging out this playoff expansion? And wasn't that about just to be done before the committee was created and before expansion happened? Like the playoff was, you know, chugging on down the tracks, and then all of a sudden it looked like there was going to be a whoop-de-doop, and just this little move pulled, and everybody, once Texas and OU got exposed, everybody then went, wait a second, and everybody looked in out their windows and looked in their cabinets and looked under every rock, and then it was like, whoa, wait a second, like what is about to happen here? And I think that just slammed the brakes on a lot of stuff, honestly. And I think the alliance was created to counterbalance the SEC in particular, and them just basically taking over college football, I think, in some ways. And I mean, the future scheduling stuff was fun to talk about, but that was like icing on the cake. The cake was, this is entirely to balance out, you know, ourselves against the SEC and their power and their decision making.
Let's talk about future scheduling as well. If you want to illustrate my point, anybody online right now, go to fbsschedules.com and you can look at the future schedules and tell me, just pick a random team, where they're going to put them right now. Yeah. Even if they redo it, they have deals. Like once you start buying out, you can buy out one or two teams, and then it starts to get fiscally irresponsible in trying to make all these things up.
Exactly. The Baylor Law Tech game being dissolved was a rarity. That doesn't happen often. And then they had to find a team. Albany, they did. So that's more the exception than it is something that's just common.
I think it was also to stem any potential bleeding from further expansion from their own conferences. I think if you're the Pac-12, you had to be. Like, I know contracts are in place, but all the schools and the alliances, like, they're all under – their contracts are now all coming up, like, together. Yep. The ACC's distant. That's because that was done more recently. But, like, the Big Ten's coming up. They're already in negotiations, private negotiations. They're in that, like, little time frame of exclusivity with ESPN. The Pac-12, we know, is coming up in a year or two.
They hope.
Well, it is. Their contract's running out.
I mean, they hope they can get something done. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I mean, it's coming up. Yep. So, you know, some of the talk early on, and some of it might have just been internet gibberish, but some of it you start to think about the seismic shift of an OU and Texas movement. If you'll remember, there was all of a sudden like, wait, are you hearing what's Clemson rumors and Florida State rumors? And then it was like, oh, those two are going to jump into the SEC. And then it was the West schools, and it was going to be USC is going to be poached by the Big Ten and Oregon by the Big Ten. And those are all sorts of rumors going on. And some, you know, certified media folks like threw a little sauce on that and was like, you know, there's kind of some of that. And then it all just went away. And why did it all just go away? Because they formed the alliance. And so I do wonder if that alliance wouldn't have come together. If not like in the last year it would have happened, because contractually it would have been very difficult to do. But if we might not have seen more of a seismic shifting and more of a predatory move by the SEC to maybe make that Super League, and then the Big Ten to counteract that with their own, and then you're really left with a whole lot of everybody holding their bag and wondering what's going on. So I think that was all potentially avoided by the fact that it just got blown up. And then, you know, in a scramble to basically save yourselves, they were like, let's just join up, and we can't let the SEC take over college football and become this Super League by themselves. And they, you know, brothers in arms were like, we'll fight this off. And so now you basically got, you know, these two sides on opposite lines.
Here we go. Let's go to Cabo. Let's go right now. What do we need?
What? Money.
Okay. Money, tickets, hotel, all that stuff. You just can't. You got to have a plan. It sounds good. Here's what Gene Smith said at one point in the story by Nicole Auerbach in The Athletic. We talk more about what we need to do with the Big Ten to keep the Big Ten as valuable as it is in our footprint. For our fans, our athletes, and our television partners, it's rare. Tell me if I'm reading something. It's rare that we compare ourselves even to the ACC or the Pac-12, the alliance. If we're just looking at TV value, we're more valuable to the ACC or the Pac-12 than they are to us.
I mean, yes.
That's not a really good partnership, though. That's not. That kind of sounds like back That sounds like it's arrogance, and the Big Ten is a powerful, money-making machine. But that doesn't sound like a very good relationship.
No, but it's very true in that the Big Ten didn't need much of the ACC or Pac-12, but they needed them to vote the way they did. It's kind of, I mean, it kind of just sounds like Mitch McConnell going, look, that I'm the guy. I need all these people to help me vote, but I'm telling everybody what to do. And that's what the Big Ten was doing, and that's what the Big Ten will continue to do. They've got a more powerful brand than the ACC or Pac-12 right now, and it was mutually beneficial for all three of them, but certainly less so for the Big Ten because they needed them less.
Yeah, and so that story in The Athletic, that was today, and it sounds like perhaps for scheduling, that sounded good, some juicy matchups, but then again, you're going to also have Vanderbilt playing against Cal. Or whoever. Okay, you have two educationally high institutions, and, well, there's a lot of them in part of those conferences as well. So that might, think about what that could do. That could affect some things, and also the Big Ten still hasn't yet made up their mind if they're going to go 9 games or 8. I think if you have more than 12 teams in a conference, the Big 12 plays 9 games and there's 10. I think if they can do it, I think everybody, I wish they could all say everyone has to play 9 conference games, but every conference has to do it their own way. I'm not asking the Big Ten to change or whoever else to change. That was on the table. That's still something they're discussing as well, of how many conference games they end up playing.
Yeah, maybe interesting to see how that's received, from the others involved. George Kliavkoff, how does he read those comments and take that? And then again, like Big Ten's in power position, so he can basically say whatever he wants to, and who's going to tell him, you can't say that. Oh, really? Okay, well, you can get help from elsewhere. I mean, like, he has nothing to lose, really, in the position that the Big Ten is in. But, yeah, it would have been cool if the alliance actually turned into something that, was fun for college football fans. Like, all of a sudden we are getting SC versus Michigan or whatever, they play. But, some random, more big-time, more non-con matchups that maybe did have this alliance side to them. That would be unique if, there was you couldn't do it like the Big 12 SEC Challenge, because there's 3 conferences involved. But if you could do like not even like a points total every year, but just some kind of a deal that you kept up with, like a competition almost with the conferences. Like, there's a lot of ways you could go with it, and then just a lot of big matchups in particular. And the fact that that's like the last thing they're worried about. It was all about this voting block, and for the fans, that kind of sucks, but that's what it was.
Moment, right?
Yeah, it did.
Here's what Smith also said, and this makes sense. They have games scheduled with Texas, Alabama, and Georgia coming up.
Well, that's what a lot of people said, though. It's like you're already playing most of these teams, so that's what was part of what was just kind of curious about the whole like scheduling alliance, and it's like, you're already playing most of these schools.
The scheduling alliance was something they said so that we would not focus on what they were.
Right, yeah.
Like voting they said, block. It's a scheduling alliance so that people would not focus on the fact that they were just going to try and vote with their own interests. That's all that they were trying to do.
There was a filibuster.
Yeah.
Is that right? I mean, is that fair? You're the political guy.
I wouldn't say a filibuster, but no, it was more like a caucus.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it was. So
we have Ohio State. Those games are huge for us. Like Notre Dame this fall. It's the 6th time ever we've played them in the regular season. That's the coolest thing. I don't see us making that change. And so that's something that I'm not sure if you saw that. It came around maybe early to mid-afternoon on the alliance. Doesn't mean it's dead, but it doesn't look like there's much of a pulse to it. Maybe that changes when we hear from other presidents, ADs, and other schools.
If the captain of that ship says it's not that important for us to schedule each other, the other two are going to be like, well, we don't need Ohio State and Michigan. How you doing over there, Wake Forest? I mean,
if you were to take those three conferences, just like you have Texas and Oklahoma with the power that they have as far as the clout, the logo, the money of the Big 12, and the SEC has theirs, is there any doubt that would Ohio State, Michigan be 1 and 2 among ACC, Big 10, and Pac-12?
Yeah, and maybe
and then USC third.
Yeah, and then Penn State's probably 4th or 5th,
and maybe they're moved in. Could be. So among those 3 conferences, I got a feeling those are the Texas and OUs of what, and of course the Big 12 is going to change here. We just don't know when, but for sure. By 2023, 24, and 25.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 SE or ACC powers were great in the 90s, and the other one is kind of a Johnny-come-lately in Clemson. I'm not trying to knock them, but I mean, they're new to the scene relatively when it comes to being a power.
As far as clout.
As far as clout goes. So, I mean, they would be in the top 10 of power brokers, the 3 teams from the ACC, but where would they be?
The number one power broker in the ACC is?
I mean, right now, Clemson has the most clout.
And they might be in the top 10.
But here's the thing. Clemson has the most clout, but the number one ratings team, television-wise, in the ACC is FSU, as crappy as they've been. So I don't know where that moves them up the ladder.
So that's just something to bring up. Texas